Hello, you're watching News Mongolia on MNB World, and I'm your host, Jaralma Tushinjaral. Our top stories for today. Election 2024. Mongolians living abroad will vote on June 20th to 23rd. In the past year, 7,244 people were diagnosed with cancer in Mongolia. Turkish Cuisine Week marked. For the news, stay tuned. June 28 is election day, when Mongolians will choose members of parliament who will lead the country for the next 4 years. April 28 was the deadline for parties to apply to participate in the parliamentary election. Mongolians living abroad will be able to vote at Mongolian embassies and consular posts from June 20th through 23rd. We have details in the following report.
Around 6,000 Mongolian citizens reside in the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and around 5,000 reside in Ireland. The online registration system developed by the General Election Commission and the General Authority of State Registration is being used to fully engage overseas voters. We're collaborating with the London Police and Protocol Division of Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office to maintain election integrity. Preparations are underway for voters lists, installing an offline VPN system for data security, CCTV surveillance, additional resources for people with disabilities, voting booths, and ballot boxes.
Following amendments to the election law, parliamentary elections will be held using a mixed electoral system, with 78 seats elected by multiple non-transferable votes in 13 multi-member constituencies and 48 by closed-list proportional representation at the national level. To qualify for proportional seats, parties and coalitions must have candidates running in at least half of the seats in each constituency. A 50% voter turnout is required for constituencies' results to be considered valid, or another round of voting must be held.
In Mongolia, 7,244 individuals were diagnosed with cancer in 2023. Financial challenges exacerbated the emotional burden for those upon receiving the diagnosis. However, citizens of foreign countries benefit from health and life insurance, mitigating such risks. Insured individuals experience less financial strain when facing illness. Consequently, officials recommend that Mongolian citizens adopt these financial practices. The folders you are looking at contain the registry of cancer cases among Mongolian citizens. They detail who was afflicted and with which type of cancer, the duration of the battle with the disease, and their outcomes. In just the past year, approximately 8,000 new entries were added to this registry. Mongolia leads among 185 countries in terms of deaths attributed to liver cancer and stomach cancer. Recent statistics also place it at the top of the list, ranking first among 185 countries for cancer-related deaths overall. In recent years, cancer incidence in Mongolia has surged by 6 to 7-fold. Since the first cancer diagnosis in Mongolia, 4,556 people have passed away due to cancer. Cancer survivors emphasize that battling cancer requires considerable patience and financial resources. In Mongolia, there are even individuals who have been battling cancer for 17 to 18 years. While many cases are treatable, some cancers have metastasized, making treatment more challenging. The financial burden of treatment is substantial, often necessitating support from patients, children, and families. Unfortunately, not everyone has access to such support. Hence, several critical issues need addressing in Mongolia, including enhancing public awareness about cancer and promoting personal health vigilance, reducing hospital wait times to improve accessibility, and enhancing post-surgery rehabilitation services. Consequently, officials stress the importance of citizens embracing health insurance as a necessary practice.
If you experience an unexpected accident, you may be unable to work during your recovery period. Therefore, it's important to consider insuring yourself so your income can cover any loss. By paying a small premium on a monthly or daily basis on obtaining insurance, you can receive financial compensation in the event of an unforeseen accident, ensuring continued financial stability during challenging times.
Many cancer patients exhaust their savings and financial resources on treatment. Moreover, some of the over 5,000 people who passed away did so because they lacked sufficient financial resources. Officials highlight that if these individuals had health and life insurance, they could have avoided these financial risks and challenges. Turkish Cuisine Week is being held at home and abroad to celebrate the country's rich gastronomy. Events are being held from May 21st through 27th at Turkish embassies and culture centers worldwide, along with celebrations in several Turkish cities. On Friday, May 21st, the Embassy of the Republic of Turkey in Ulaanbaatar held a cooking event for diplomats, public figures, and the media.
Asian delicacies were showcased at Turkey's embassy in Mongolia under the auspices of the ambassador's spouse Ayla Ateş. The embassy held a Turkish breakfast event to kick off Turkish Cuisine Week. Dishes from Turkey's Aegean region were introduced at the Turkish cuisine cooking event.
Thank you very much for coming to our residence. It's a pleasure for us to have you. I will talk about a little our events, our cuisine, and Turkish Cuisine Week, of course. Under the auspices of the Presidency and Ministry of Culture and Tourism, we celebrate Turkish Cuisine Week every year, 21st, 27 May. On this occasion, the healthy, waste-free, sustainable phase of deep-rooted Turkish cuisine is introduced on an international scale. It was deemed appropriate to introduce Aegean region cuisine this year. Aegean cuisine is more than 800, it is due to use more than 800 endemic plant species, also known as the green cuisine. It stands out with its fresh vegetables and seafoods. The history of the Turkish cuisine goes back many years. The tastes in the kitchen of the Seljuk and Ottoman empires and the flavors that develop all over today's Turkey have enabled the Turkish cuisines to take its current form. For this reason, it's among the richest cuisines in the world. The Turkish cuisine is not only a source of variety and suitably for taste, also a source of healthy and balanced nutrition. Our cuisine, which has a very important place in terms of representing our culture, also reflects our identity. I want to thank you again to attending our events and thank you for your interest in our Turkish cuisine. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Turkish Cuisine Week is being organized under the auspices of the Turkish President and Turkey's First Lady Emine Erdogan, with support from the country's Ministry of Culture and Tourism. Turkish cuisine is one of the world's top cuisines. Turkish Cuisine Week is marked globally every May with events and presentations at home and abroad. This year marks the third observance of Turkish Cuisine Week.
Thank you for staying with us. Now let's take a look at currency exchange rates provided by Mongol Bank. Next, our program will turn our attention to foreign news, partnered with international news agencies. Georgia marked Independence Day with a military parade and oath ceremony on Sunday in central Tbilisi. The ceremony was attended by Georgian President Salome Zorabishvili, Prime Minister Irakli Kobahidze, and Parliament Speaker Shalva Papashvili.
Independence Day comes as tensions mount over divisive legislation that critics view as a threat to the country's democratic freedoms and Western aspirations. The legislation passed by the parliament earlier this month requires media, non-governmental organizations, and other non-profits to register as pursuing the interests of foreign power if they receive more than 20% of their funding from abroad. The legislation has sparked mass protests in Georgia. The bill, which also drew criticism from European Union officials, is feared to derail Georgia's European Union aspirations. President Zurabishvili, who is increasingly at odds with the governing party, vetoed the law on May 18th, but the ruling Georgian Dream Party has a majority sufficient to override the presidential veto. The fate of our country is in our hands, and the solution is ours to find. As the president of the country, the guarantor of its independence, security, and foreign policy, I see my part of responsibility in finding the solution. The solution exists and stands evident in front of us. Saving our European path is the cornerstone of this solution. Today, as the specter of Russia looms over us, partnership and rapprochement with Europe are the true path to preserving and strengthening our independence and peace. Those who sabotage and undermine this path trample upon and damage the peaceful and secure future of our country, hindering the path towards becoming a full member of the free and democratic world.
South Korea and China will expand high-level talks by establishing a new consultative group involving high-level diplomats and defense officials and resume the negotiations for their free trade agreement, South Korean Presidential Office said.
Kim Tae-hyo, the first deputy director of the National Security Office, said Sunday in a briefing following the bilateral talks between South Korean President Yoon and Chinese Premier Lee Chang that Beijing and Seoul agreed to start 2+2 high dialogue between their high-level defense and foreign affairs officials.
In terms of specific results of the South Korea-China high-level talks, we established the South Korea-China diplomatic and security dialogue and decided to hold the first meeting in mid-June. This can be seen as a 2+2 consultative group between the authorities of the foreign and defense ministries of the two countries. The Vice Minister of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the director-level officials of the Ministry of National Defense will attend the meeting.
Kim also said that the two countries will resume the second phase of the South Korea-China FTA negotiations. The South Korea-China FTA has been in effect since December 2015. Going beyond the market opening in the goods sector that has been pursued so far, the two sides will continue discussions to expand exchanges and opening in the services sector, particularly in areas such as culture, tourism, and law, Kim said.
South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol held bilateral talks with Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida in Seoul on Sunday. The two leaders vowed to further advance bilateral ties as next year marks the 60th anniversary of the normalization of diplomatic relations between South Korea and Japan.
Kishida arrived in South Korea early in the day for trilateral talks with Yoon and Chinese Premier Lee Chang. On Monday, the Asian leaders will gather for a trilateral meeting, the first of its kind in more than 4 years. No major announcement is expected to come out of the trilateral meeting, but the very resumption of their highest-level trilateral meeting is a good sign and suggests that the three Asian neighbors are intent on improving their relations.
Next year marks the 60th anniversary of the normalization of diplomatic relations between Japan and South Korea. To further advance the relationship between our two countries, I hope that President Yoon and I can each direct our respective governments to prepare for this occasion. I hope that Japan and South Korea can further strengthen our cooperation to maintain and enhance a free and open Indo-Pacific and effectively address global challenges. I would like to discuss these points with you today.
することができればと願っております。우리 두 사람이 합의한 대로
As agreed between the two of us, all intergovernmental agreements have been restored. This year as well, we continue high-level exchange in the fields of finance, industry, and advanced technology. Based on these achievements, I hope that the Prime Minister and I can work together to prepare for a historic turning point that will elevate South Korea-Japan relations to a new heights next year, which marks the 60th anniversary of the normalization of diplomatic relations between South Korea and Japan.
Aid trucks have begun entering Gaza from southern Israel on Sunday through a new agreement to bypass the Rafah crossing with Egypt after Israeli forces seized the Palestinian side of it earlier this month. Egypt refuses to reopen its side of the Rafah crossing until control of the Gaza side is handed back to Palestinians. But under US and Israeli pressure, it agreed to divert traffic through Israel's Kerem Shalom crossing, Gaza's main cargo terminal. That crossing has been largely inaccessible because of fighting linked to Israel's offensive in Rafah. Israel says it has allowed hundreds of trucks to enter, but United Nations agencies say it is usually too dangerous to retrieve the aid on the other side. Israel's military campaign in Gaza, now in its 8th month, has killed over 35,800 Palestinians, according to Gaza's health ministry, which does not distinguish between civilians and fighters in its count. Around 80% of the population's 2.3 million people have fled their homes, severe hunger is widespread, and United Nations officials say parts of the territory are experiencing famine. Hamas triggered the war with its October 7th attack into Israel, in which Palestinian militants killed some 1,200 people, mostly civilians, and seized some 250 hostages. Hamas is still holding some 100 hostages and the remains of around 30 others after most of the rest were released during a ceasefire last year. Now let's take a look at weather forecast for world major cities. Well, that's all for today. Thank you for staying with us. We will see you tomorrow with more news and updates. Goodbye.